Hey guys, Max here, and this is your daily update for yesterday, the 6th of February. It was, of course, the weekend, so markets were closed, but we're going to look into what happened over last week in Ukraine with COVID and in China, along with a couple other things, so let's just get right into it. Now, in the markets that were open, in the crypto sphere, what went on? Well, the markets pumped a little bit more. Of course, the last few days now, crypto has had some good times, and yesterday was no different. Bitcoin and Ethereum saw some slight gains, with Bitcoin sitting above $42,000 now and Ethereum sitting just above $3,000 as well. Altcoins did a fair bit better on average just by nature of being smaller and more volatile. Shiba Inu, for example, was up 20% yesterday. I don't really know why. Someone vaguely famous probably tweeted about it. Ripple was up 12%, and before you tell me that Ripple isn't a coin, I know, I just don't care. And that's probably on some vaguely positive news on the court case that has been going on for ages now, but in general, the markets are doing well. So well, in fact, that Bitcoin is now above its 50-day moving average for the first time in a few months, which is making some people believe that the trend has been reversed, that we're in for another super bull run, maybe we're going up to $100,000 Bitcoin again, and maybe we are. But to be honest, with the way the macro environment is going, I'm a little bit skeptical of that. Now, when interest rates actually rise come March, it's going to get far more expensive to be messing around with margin and high-risk assets like crypto, and I fully expect that to cause some major changes to take place. To be honest, it would be nice if there were a specific piece of news that we could attribute this crypto pump to, but there just isn't. Now, some people have been saying that there's a short squeeze going on, but there isn't. Just because short positions get liquidated doesn't mean there's a short squeeze. If there's one thing that Wall Street Bets can be criticized for, it's the fact that they've convinced millions of people that short squeezes can and do happen everywhere and all the time. Now, moving on to the rest of the world and what is going on with COVID, and in particular over in China, where another pandemic seems to be in the works, just as the Winter Olympics start. Now, in Hong Kong, the number of cases are doubling every 3 days at the moment, and this is after the already very strict restrictions have come into force, and these are figures coming from the authorities who hid the virus for months and even murdered scientists and doctors who tried to warn the world about it, so it's safe to say that the situation over there is not very good. Now, Hong Kong is, of course, pursuing a COVID-0 strategy, something I've been very critical of as it's just impossible and it's never going to happen, and pragmatism is actually very important here. Now, Hong Kong is in a sort of middle ground when it comes to COVID and restrictions. It doesn't have the ability to enforce mass lockdowns on the scale which the CCP does in the mainland, and it doesn't have the capacity for mass testing either. For comparison, in China, another large city of 3 million people has just been locked down, and that's a very strict lockdown. Everything ceases to move as cases have been rising. We've also seen this happen with a bunch of other cities in China over the last couple of months as Omicron spreads through the country and as the CCP tries to hide the extent of their problems as the Winter Olympics have just started, and so the world is watching. Now, we are going to come back to the Olympics in a moment, but first, what's going on in the rest of the world with regards to the virus? Well, Australia is going to be opening up to double vaccinated tourists again after about 2 years of very strict border controls. This will, of course, be a very welcome action for the tourist industry over there, and to be honest, probably almost everyone. Australia has gone a bit off the deep end during the pandemic. The police forces have been documented being pretty damn violent, unnecessarily so, with protests, and as far as democracies go, few have been limiting the freedoms of their citizens as much as in Australia. Now, elsewhere in the world, the Omicron variant seems to be behaving mostly as we expected. Lots of cases, but reduced severity, and still a sufficient amount of protection from the variant from vaccines that don't come directly from China, so the prospects of more restrictions in countries like the US is looking increasingly unlikely, and I do think that we're now at the other end of the pandemic, which is nice to see. Now, back to the Winter Olympics. To be honest, I wasn't really planning on talking about it much because it just doesn't seem too relevant, to be honest. But there is, of course, the problem with Peng Shui, who is still missing. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Peng was a female Chinese tennis player who was sexually assaulted by the former vice premier of China, and as a result of her refusing to be quiet and be silenced, she was disappeared off the face of the earth. Of course, the CCP claims she's just hiding from the public view in what is a personal decision, but you have to be absolutely deluded to believe that. There have been a lot of calls from people and countries around the world demanding that she be set free. She did not commit any crimes herself, she had them committed against her. Sadly though, the support from Western governments was merely notional. Basically, no country has had the balls to actually boycott the Olympics or do anything substantial. There is just a lot of talk and no action going on here, but I feel it's important that we remember the evils of the Chinese state. The Communist Party did this, and this is categorically evil. Now, I fully expect some Chinese shills in the comments down below to bring up the Cuban Missile Crisis, as if that is justification for this poor woman to be treated as she has been, but I very simply won't be engaging with people who support a genocidal regime. Now, over in Canada, of course, we have the truckers' protest, which is sort of in a culmination phase as it is in Ottawa now. Of course, there have been countless people telling me about the violent nature of the protest, but last time we talked about this, I very specifically asked anyone talking about that to just send me videos of the widespread violence taking place. It shouldn't be hard to find if it's present. There are millions of mobile phones, and I've seen countless videos of the peaceful protest, but I don't think honking your horns constitutes violence. Of course, there will be individuals and outliers who jump on this opportunity for a bit of chaos, but they are few and far between, just as certain looters and arsonists did last year in the US, and this is not at all representative of the protests as a whole, and I found literally no evidence to suggest that it is. Coincidentally, the very same people who were supporting those very violent protests last year are the same ones condemning these mostly peaceful ones. I will now link to a Twitter account in the description down below, which is doing a great job highlighting the hypocrites in this sense. Now, Ottawa has declared a state of emergency as the protesters have not been going home as authorities had hoped. Millions of dollars has been raised for the protesters, first on the platform GoFundMe, who then decided they didn't want the protesters to receive that support, so they took the money for themselves and shut the fundraiser down. How that isn't classed as theft and fraud, I literally don't know, but it damn well should be. Thankfully though, cryptocurrency is being used to replace these centralized platforms, and I think over $20 million has now been raised to support the protesters via Ethereum, and I know millions has been raised via Bitcoin as well, which is great to see, and it's a great example of how important decentralized finance is. This is a great use case for it, and I guarantee it won't be the last time we see DeFi and crypto used to get around authoritarian states or companies who believe they have a right to steal from certain people purely because they don't like their views. Now, truckers have been stockpiling fuel, food and the like, and police have been going around confiscating all that, which is just a fancy word for stealing. To make matters worse, apparently bringing material support is grounds for arrest according to Canadian police. So if you have extra food, fuel or water, well, you're now a criminal and you'll be arrested. Now, of course, this all started in particular as a movement against vaccine mandates regarding truckers, but also just all vaccine mandates, COVID restrictions in general, and it's now just an anti-Trudeau protest as well, as he's hardly covered himself in glory the last few years. It's gotten pretty damn mainstream and widespread across the rest of the world as well. I was driving around the M25 here in London yesterday, the motorway that circles London, and I saw probably 5 or so sets of people on bridges with banners and flags in support of the protests in Canada, which was very nice to see. Now for the update in Ukraine, where I am about to piss off the complete opposite people who I just pissed off regarding Canada. Macron is due to meet with Putin today as he tries to convince Putin to stop doing what he's doing, I guess. I really don't know what they think will be achieved by this meeting, but let's be honest, the chances are nothing will change today. Now, Macron has been trying to be friends with Putin for about 5 years now. He's been sucking up to him and putting a lot of political capital in his way, trying to get on his good side, so we'll see if that paid off for him, but I sincerely doubt it. Now, lots of officials from Europe and the US are looking for energy security, and that seems to be the name of the game right now. Sanctions on Russia will of course run both ways. Shut Russia off from SWIFT and the worldwide banking system, and they will shut Europe off from natural gas, and then the already sky-high prices will increase, and people in Europe, but in particular governments, will struggle. Of course, this will hurt Russia as well. They will lose huge amounts of income as they sell their natural gas to Europe for lots of money, and it's a huge part of their economy. But Russia is well aware of this, as is every country in Europe and the US as well. Now, liquid natural gas tankers have been sailing over from the US for a few months now to try and ease the limited supply, but it's not quite enough, and if the situation deteriorates, it will only get worse as well. Germany is now still claiming to be supporting the rights of Ukrainians to live in peace, but they're still opposing the rights of Ukrainians to defend themselves or their rights to self-determination, so no change on the German front. They're still distinctly lacking leadership since Merkel has stepped down. Now, on the other side of problems in Europe, inflation rears its ugly head again, but this time it's not awful news. The inflation in Europe is of course bad, and it is getting worse, but Klaus Knot, who is a member of the Council on the European Central Bank, has been getting hawkish, and he's gone around telling people that he's hawkish as well. He's saying that there will be rate hikes in 2022, that inflation is bad, that it's going to get worse before it gets better, and that he's basically breaking party lines. He's going against the narrative that the ECB have been pushing for months now, and he's making it clear that he disagrees with Lagarde. Now, his claims about what is to come are still lagging what the banks and financial institutions expect to happen, but this is expected, to be honest. Governments are inefficient, the state is inefficient, individuals are inefficient, and markets, while rarely perfect, in aggregate, they are almost always better predictors than individuals. Now, we have, of course, spoken a fair bit about Peloton and its fall from grace recently, and there's a simple reason. It's a very easy target, and it's a little bit funny to see it fall as badly as it has. But today, we're going to be talking about an entirely irrational pump of its share price as news of a potential takeover has come out. Now, usually a takeover will spike a share price, as the shares tend to be bought up by the new company above market rates, so prices rise as people know they will have a buyer at that specific price. The problem here is that no one knows who might buy Peloton, or if they will buy it at all, or at what price they will buy it, and yet the share price of the company has jumped 39% on this news anyway. This is absolutely irrational, and it's a clear display of the ridiculous levels of speculation in the markets right now, and this is not sustainable. Nonetheless, it is happening. Apple, Nike, and Amazon are apparently the big companies to watch who might be considering a takeover. Now, Apple would be my best bet, to be honest. They have ridiculous amounts of cash and could buy up Peloton in an instant without even damaging their balance sheet in the slightest. They have an incredible ability to market premium products and create a sense of superiority around them, something that Peloton has been aiming for a while now. Now, equally, Nike has been breaking into the tech side of fitness in recent years with sports and fitness apps and things like that as well, and so Peloton would suit that sort of expansion as well. And we spoke a little bit about Amazon and their huge ecosystem yesterday and how that would likely work with Peloton too. Basically, I'm not saying there won't be a taker. I think there probably will be a takeover actually, because no one wants to own Peloton, but a company can do something with that. I am, however, saying that this price action on these rumors is entirely irrational, at least until we know who is doing what and for what price. Now, that is it for the day. I will be back, of course, tomorrow. If you enjoyed this video, then leave a like and a comment to bless the YouTube algorithm. If you want more content like this, then check out our Patreon and join our community of investors. You get access to our Discord, loads of exclusive content like insight into my portfolio and buy and sell alerts for all my own investments. It is now February, so if you've been waiting to join, now is the perfect time. Now, there's a link in the description to masterworks.io, a site that allows you to buy fractional shares of art from world famous artists like Banksy, which can be a great way to diversify your portfolio with non-market correlated assets. It's completely free to sign up, you don't have to buy anything, you don't have to hand over any card information, so if that sounds interesting, then make sure to check it out. There's also a link in the description to BlockFi, which will give you up to $250 in free Bitcoin when you use it. You can also get 9% interest on stablecoins like USDC, which is a far higher rate than you get from any savings account these days. Just make sure not to use Tether. Thank you all for the support, thanks for watching, stay stoic, until next time.